So my first question for you, sir, and I'm not going to, I think everyone who listens to our show and listens to KPFC, I think they already know who you are. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I run into a lot of people that know me.
Okay, do you want to give a real down and dirty quick introduction then?
Well, I don't know what it would be. Been in Lake County. We bought in '95 a piece of property, and
so you're still a newbie according to most people then.
Well, yeah, I guess if they want to do that, and they do that in a lot of places. It's big in Alaska. You go up there, the first thing they say is, "How long you been here?"
Exactly.
I've been here 40 years. How long you been here? So there's some bragging rights, I suppose. But this is a new age. People move around, and I've worked in just about every county of this state. In fact, I think I've worked in every county, all 58. And
Are you originally from California, though?
In California.
I mean, are you originally from California?
Originally California, fifth generation, 7 generations when you count the grandkids and all that, but I'm a 5th generation. And they came out in a wagon. Actually, first scout came out.
Nice.
Was Steele, and settled here when the Spanish still had it, and they were just losing it, as a matter of fact. So,
wow,
yeah, and
that's exciting. Into Southern California?
No, Northern California.
Really?
Yeah, they were on a ranch near Red Bluff.
Okay.
My dad's dad was born on a ranch in Red Bluff. His dad was born on the same ranch, and his dad came and started working on that ranch. And
excellent.
So then my dad was actually born in a log cabin.
Oh, how sweet.
Now, we're not far removed from the old time.
No.
Because this was Trinity County, way up in the tall mountains, and the reason that they were there was to mine gold.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were hard rock miners. Mm-hmm. And his dad, actually, it wasn't even a log cabin. It was a lean-to to a log cabin.
Wow.
So his granddad lived in the log cabin.
What a life! Nice. What a life! My grandfather was a gold miner in the Yukon. He was based out of Spokane, and he went up on the trail up over the mountain. The whole thing during those
the meaning
days.
of hard scrabble.
Yeah, and my mom still has a nugget from his gold mining days.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, when I was a kid, I worked up there we had a little cattle deal, summer grazing, and so I sat horseback, and I also did some pack train when I was 5 to 7.
That's such a life. And of course, my dad's family, they moved to La Jolla and San Diego area back then.
How yuppie-ish.
But back then it wasn't that. It was the 1940s. I know, it was the 1940s, and they're in like Chula Vista and La Jolla, and they're all in that area. They started right after World War II. They came down from Elmhurst, Illinois.
World War II changed things big time.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Big time, absolutely.
So our family goes back that far, at least, but I'm kind of new myself.
Yes, so
go right ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's all right. So anyway, so you're a local boy.
I'm a local boy.
I like that.
I really am.
And and believe it or not, you are a very down to earth individual. I enjoy talking to you.
It's a lot of fun.
Doesn't mean I agree with everything you say.
Oh, absolutely,
but
you shouldn't. So we can have something to talk about.
Absolutely, otherwise it'd be boring.
That's what it's about.
That's why I left the show, because I can be controversial and not even worry about what my real thoughts are. So anyway, I have some questions I'm going to ask every candidate for office, not specifically for District 3 or District 2 or for sheriff, but just in general. So my first question for you, and I asked this of all the current supervisors when I interviewed them over a year ago.
Yeah.
What do you think is the primary job of a county supervisor?
Oh, that's really a good question, because, I'll tell you, they have some jobs that are kind of subscribed to them or abscribed to them by virtue of the fact that there's an appeal process. I listened to some of that yesterday. And so people have to come to them because something their staff does, and there's a fine or whatever, and there's appeal process. So that's fair enough. And so they do get some pretty nitty-gritty stuff in the neighborhood thing. But when you're looking at the county supervisor from the standpoint of the county and representing everybody, and I believe every single supervisor should be representing everybody, but primarily they have a route of their district to them, kind of a straight line route, so they can bring some stuff that are more local, more understandable from the different areas of the county. Now, all of the different areas of the county for the 5 supervisors are really different. I mean, it's even differences within districts. But what you should do is you should look at the whole of the county, provide leadership going forward for those basic things that people need, that the county really needs from the standpoint of its character. The character of this county needs to be protected. It should not look like L.A., in my view. And so if everybody that has moved here believes that it should look like LA, you're not going to be representing your district with that kind of supervisor. So I believe that people don't want it to look like LA, or we'd have a bunch of LA-type supervisors up there. So it should not look that way. And there's natural attributes here that should be protected. The whole thing should, in fact, support an economy that basically looks like this county. The economy should look like the county. Again, it should not look like the Bay Area's economy or Sacramento or LA. And so all those things are really site-specific.
So if I can ad-lib or put words in your mouth.
He's got better words than I do. That's what he's saying. I like the code here. Were you typing as I was talking?
No. I try to interpret because, I worked for some major corporations in my lifetime in decent managerial positions, and I get so tired of the rhetoric and the BS and the schmoozing.
Yes.
And so what I'm hearing, and I'm being honest now and sincere, what I'm hearing from you is that you think the primary job that you would have as a county supervisor is representing the whole county, not necessarily just your own district, and trying to bring on, and folks, this isn't a stage. I'm making this up as I go here.
I can see him sweating over there.
I am, really. Thank God I'm not on camera. Oh, I am. You're actually trying to bring in the philosophy or the needs of this county as a whole, specific to the county, not trying to copycat other areas around the country or the state or our neighbors.
Yeah, we could borrow ideas from them, but really, this county is unique. And in fact, there's one thing.
Got that right.
It is really unique, and it's unique people-wise, but it's really unique from the standpoint of its geology, its ecology. And I've been in all 58 counties, and all of them are really neat and they're wonderful, and there's some great places to go and visit. And you go to Tahoe and you think it's a wonderful place up there, but they have nothing on us. We have more species in this county localized around this lake in the riparian overlaps and up the slopes and back into the forest than any other county in the state, or at least as many, and almost as many as some areas of Hawaii. So we're really second to Hawaii as far as species diversity and richness.
Right. I'm going to get into that down the road, not down the road, but a few, because that you're delving now into job creation, economics, tourism, and all the other above stuff. So we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
And my questions here at random, I just picked them off your website. That's why I said you put information on the website is fair game.
I should have checked my website again.
So you listed on your website. Again, guys, I'm not a genius here, so I got to read information to figure out what everyone's about here. You said you have 9 priorities on your website, right?
Yeah.
At least I think it was 9.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be. Yeah, if I tried to say them, why I'd probably.
No, I wouldn't. I would not make you do that. Again, the priorities are a nice, what I'll call a mission statement.
Fair enough.
Okay. Yeah. There's no, and nor should there be on a website, an actual game plan. So my question to you is, the priorities you have set out, do you actually have a step-by-step action plan to be able to implement and succeed in those priorities? Or is this just something that you're committed to try to persuade, influence, or to hijack the other supervisors to make it work?
The other supervisor, well, I would hope the other supervisors, and I've kind of watched them to see, who would be the partners up there, would agree with the direction that I'd want everything to go. My priorities come up from having worked in this field for, of working with landscapes, working with people, working with ecological issues, working with economies. 30 years on the job and then 10 years as a consultant. So 40 years, really, of looking at these things. So when I look at what's going on here, I listen to people, and and so you move forward with your processes, and whatever opportunities come up first, that may be the first thing you're really high profile in order to get something done. You don't know how this is going to be played out for you, but there are just some things that are so obvious. And so when I lay them on the table and I say, this has got to be one of my priorities, it really is. It should be everybody's priority. Now, I may have my mind changed as soon as I get in the cauldron of public opinion and the rest of it, and they'll say, no, we don't care about that. Well, then it becomes a leadership role to get them to see it that way, to bring forward the information so that they'll understand things differently. And that's why I've been writing in the newspaper. That's when I first started. You need to understand this lake before you make decisions about this lake. It's been mismanaged in a way, depending on how you look at it. It's kind of...
And we know there's different opinions on that.
Yeah, and there's a quote unquote, and a quote, end of quote, is that 60 years worth of it has created what you've got now. Now, at the same time, those decisions that they made along the way have benefited other people, and they would argue, no, this has been a good direction to go. But so, you can argue all these things, but the fact is you've got some issues with this lake, and you're going to have to turn some thinking around. Now, that hasn't just happened here. It's happened in the whole state. It's happened around the country. It's happened around the world. There's been a complete rejuvenation of all European theater from the way that they approach things, and so it's going to happen here as well.
Matter of fact, not to get off subject here, I have a very dear old, he's old, friend back home in Australia still, in Canberra. And we talk about Clear Lake, and there's some similar lakes in Australia where we used to live that kind of sort of have the same problem. And I guess there's a displaced Northern California professor that actually lives in Australia that is now one of the gurus on solving the problems similar to Clear Lake. And I guess he's well known here in Northern California. He was up in the Clear Lake area for many years. Can't remember his name, though.
Alex Horn.
Yes.
Alex Horn.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought that sounded, the scenario sounded, I worked with Alex Horn in 1976.
Yeah, let's not date ourselves.
1976.
Okay?
Yeah,
okay.
so
76.
Yeah, 76.
76. I was still, where was I? I can't remember. Anyway, so to reiterate your answer, do you actually have a game plan though?
Oh, yeah.
To implement each one of your priorities?
Yeah.
And obviously, we all change our minds. Or can be influenced.
That's right. And it's going to be, the priorities will come in a sequence of opportunity more than the way that you would like to have it, because you cannot do anything alone up there. Your vote won't count unless you have two other votes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So it's really a matter of not only bringing them your ideas, but bringing to them the method of getting things done, so that they can see, yes, this is the way to go. Right. Now, I've testified on some issues up there before, and it didn't move forward. And when you just testify and say, here's how things look, and this is how we're going to go, you should go forward, they'll say, thank you very much for the information, because you haven't given them enough to move on.
All right. Fair enough. Let's move on, because I had lots of stuff here.
All right.
Okay. On your website, I'm kind of quoting you here, I will push for greater transparency, community engagement, and a strong ethical construct in county government. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I think transparency is the new political term that everyone uses these days.
Yes, so ask me what it means.
I know what it means myself.
See, it means something different to everybody, I'll bet.
Of course,
right.
Well, okay.
So let him define it.
Yeah.
No, thanks. Put the pressure on me now. Jeez,
not
and you're
you.
sitting there playing
Let
on
Jim
Facebook.
define
Oh,
it.
okay.
She's playing a video game behind me.
Yeah, I know. So my question here is, how do you plan on providing? Well, I guess you need to define transparency from your point of view. But,
there you go. Yeah.
okay, and then how are you going to provide transparency based on the past history of the current board and prior boards, when the current personalities, and I'm trying to be polite and nice here, are not very conducive to transparency?
Oh, okay. All right. I got you.
And they're not. I mean, that's obvious. Anyone who calls in will tell you the same thing.
Well, a lot of decisions. You want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. A lot of the decisions that they make up there, you have trouble understanding exactly how they got to the point they did. And then, they may have gotten there over a long period of time of dealing with people, and at the end they'll say, this is the way I feel about something. And maybe I'm going to get trapped in the same thing, I don't know. But transparency for me is explaining how I got to where I got. And if I got there by virtue of talking in the back door with a bunch of supporters or people that think like me, that isn't transparency. Transparency is actually a step-by-step approach to thinking that you explain to everybody from the standpoint of how it's going to be better countywide and why you have to go in that direction. If that isn't your game, then maybe you don't belong at the county supervisor level, and that's how I look at it.
Okay, well, let me add my definition of transparency as a citizen and a resident of beautiful. I know it's the table, it's not me. We want to see if we can. Okay, of Lee County is transparency to me. And again, I realize the Brown Act comes into play here, and I still don't know the procedures. There's many people out there listening and otherwise who know a hell of a lot more than I do about this stuff, but just in listening to the, I don't want to be polite, the language and the interpretation and the procedures that the board and certain city councils go through, I think the public is not well informed. And let me expand on that. During my interviews of the other current supervisors, I asked them what they could do to better improve communications between elected officials, staff, and the public. And they said, well, we have our weekly meetings. They can come to that. That was their basic overall explanation of transparency. My idea of transparency is for each individual supervisor, and I'm going to include you now if you get elected, of having a interactive website, have polls on there, have the public be able to go to your website and voice their opinion on how they feel about a certain measure or certain statute that you guys want to implement. Having a town hall meeting on a quarterly basis that, hey, here's the stuff that's coming up over the next few months that's going to be coming in front of the Board of Supervisors. Here's what we need to discuss. Here's my viewpoints. Here's the actual facts behind this idea or this bill or whatever it is, measure. What are your feelings on it? I don't see any of that. I think not only are the public misinformed or not communicated with, I think sometimes the elected officials don't have a clue what the hell they're doing.
Well, I can't agree with all of that and for this reason. I do know that Denise Rushing held town hall meetings and had trouble getting people there. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the problem. People do have to want to engage. And there is an easy, it's a very easy modus to fall back into for everybody just blaming the county supervisors because they're a bunch of bozos up there, but there's a lot of pressures for getting moving the county forward in certain directions. So I looked at the budget. Okay, is this mismanaged? The budget didn't look bad from the standpoint of what was coming in. It looks like there's a problem with bottom line, revenues coming in. We don't have the economy here. That's really the place that I would start as a priority, and then I would talk to people about how and why I would go in certain directions, linking the trails together. The people who come up to ride on horses should have information about going downtown to some of the wonderful towns we have with regard to Old West motif, and try to fill those stores in Upper Lake with goods that people would want to buy. And the only way you can do that is get feet on the street, and mm-hmm. It's hard to start when you're down. So you have to keep moving. But there are stores there with antiques and that sort of thing. They could get things started. We have an artist community that can be boosted by virtue of more people interested in coming into their store. That actually started at one time, and the last economy slowdown kind of slowed that all down, and it's hard to get started again. But I've been talking to people about the ways to get it started and where they want to get it started and how we can link all of this together. And it all starts back with me, with the lake, by making sure that this lake is properly boosted to folks to get them to come back here. But you can't come to a stinky lake. And so there's some things you have to do to keep it from getting stinky.
Let me stop you there. Okay, we get off subject to the question about transparency here, first of all. Okay, so you're not against transparency?
No, I'm not against it. No, I said I was for it. Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Okay.
And how to do it was the question.
Right.
And what does transparency mean? And I was saying that I'm not so sure that everything you said that people weren't doing, I'm not so sure they haven't been trying to do that. It's just
if you heard the interviews that we videoed or recorded, you say otherwise.
I didn't hear that. You always said that. Was it that
okay?
Bad? Yeah. Okay.
So let's not go down that road.
No, I get you going.
Because you'll get me going, and this is your show, not mine right now.
Yeah. All right.
So talking about you kind of sidetracked into some ideas about creating a better environment for Lake County, and basically you're emphasizing job creation here, tourism.
I'm creating the economy.
That
would be the issue.
Okay.
Jobs will come if you have a good economy, and you have to have a basis of thinking about making an economy. It can't be the thinking that happens in somewhere else. It has to be the thinking it should happen here. A destination economy is the way that I've coined it, because that's what we've got.
Is that county's responsibility, or is that private business responsibility?
Oh, no, that's the county's responsibility to keep the atmosphere and the modus here, the whole approach to the county's management in such a way that this can be a destination.
Okay, if they, in your opinion, have they done a good or bad job right now?
I don't think they've done a very good job at all.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah, I really don't. And
I think they've done a horrible job.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we interviewed Mr. Jack Long, the economic development manager, back when he first got on the job, and I got to call him again if he's willing to talk to me, to do a secondary follow-up. And at that point in time, and I'll be honest with you, and I've said this to him, wasn't being disrespectful, that I thought his his game plan at the time was not very conducive to helping Lake County. And since that point, he's formed a committee, I understand, an economic development committee.
Oh, yeah.
Are you on that at all?
No.
No. Okay, I know someone that is. And this person who is reasonably respected in the community basically said it's old-fashioned.
Yeah.
So what can you do as a supervisor to change that attitude and the game plan in that particular department and overall county-wise to help get our economy back to normal?
Well, first off, you have to have excuse me for going here because this is kind of the way I'm made. You have to have a technical background to understand how this county works from the standpoint of this being a destination. You can't have sediment running off into the lake that's going to come back as cyanobacteria in a few years. You can't have that if cyanobacteria is killing your economics. Now, it's just a natural functioning of the lake to have cyanobacteria. So from a purist standpoint, that's all fine with me. But if you don't want a stinky lake, if you don't want it to be green, and that's what's driving people away, then you're going to have to do something about it. Yeah, and that's where you start.
But isn't that long-term solution?
It's more short-term than you think. And in fact, it's more doable than you think. But it would take a lot longer than this show to explain all of the different techniques. So I'll just say that I understand all of the pieces, and I've been tested on that by people who thought they were technically had the background, and I've been able to keep pace with them pretty well because I've been doing this so long.
So what you're saying is that we need to get the lake to a specific standard before what you call destination economics comes into play?
No, there's a lot of things you do at the same time. But that is something you have to do as a way of life. You have to do as a way of business for the county. They have to understand what runoff is. They have to understand. It took them a long time to get a grading ordinance here. They so little understood the fact that they needed it.
And they still don't use it like they should.
And they still don't use it like they should, and there should be monitoring. I'll tell you, here's the where to start. You monitor. You get out there, and this last rainstorm, just driving around this county, I could tell you almost chapter and verse where everything is falling apart and needs attention now.
Sure.
And it doesn't take much. And so when you were talking about the leadership at the supervisor level, it's the leadership with the staff to give them the guidance so they know what the priority things are.
I'm going to interrupt you here for a second. And again, I apologize. This is not a very set format.
Go ahead.
But, I got a real attitude problem here. Not with you. Not with you.
Oh, good.
No, not with you.
I don't know
we like you, Jim.
Is that you just said that in cooperation with the staff should be leading, telling the supervisors what to do and how to go about things.
The other way around. No, the supervisor should be giving direction to the staff. So
they're not educated and knowledgeable enough to give direction to staff who are in their positions based on their education, knowledge, and experience. So how can a supervisor tell who may be, and I'm not saying attorney at law, I'm not saying Farrington per se, I'm not trying to do that.
Or a farmer.
How can an attorney that specializes in criminal law tell Matt, who is a financier, how to do a budget? You can't. It's up to the head. It's up to the department heads.
Department heads. But let me jump in there because I can see the question.
Go for it.
Being pretty long. Here's the deal. I've worked this a lot. How to manage in an era of limited resources. I've Department of Fish and Game for 30 years, and they never had a resource that was very deep. And so what we did was a lot of teaming with other experts and other agencies and other private. The universities. We did this a lot. I put together a watershed academy just on my own, just from the idea once, and we teamed with all the professors around the state, with other agencies, and we basically were teaching how to do some of the regulations that were being passed to protect landscapes, and at that time the big issue was coastal salmon. And so we set the regulation, don't go out there and hurt salmon, really, and nobody knew how to do it. And so we basically put on a week-long academy in the field, on the ground, and trained those people so they understood what they were looking at. So first thing you have to do here, we're very thin from the standpoint of staff depth. Only a couple of people know what they're doing, and after that, they're doing everything. Right. So you have to bring in the other resources. You have to have meetings. Now, if you look at this county, it's beautiful. We are the trustee countywide of the lake, and we have people that are in federal government that could affect that lake. Now you have one commons, BLM and U.S. Forest Service, for example, one commons affecting another commons. That's untenable, and it's actually against the law from the Clean Water Act. So we all know what the charge is. Let's get their experts and our experts together and start training each other. And in fact, I started talking. I was out on the U.S. Forest Service land the other day. I was talking to a guy about a budget. He had $35 million worth of grant dollars he can't get rid of. And by the way, a lot of this could come to this county because you're doing some of those things here that we would like to give you money to help you do. And so you got to have that connection, that nexus on how to get grant dollars, how to get other experts together with your experts, and then have conferences here, that sort of thing. When we did have the facility here at one time, and I was working with Fish and Game, I tried to get a conference staged in Lake County, and basically couldn't quite get it done for that year, and then all of the staging left, But that was actually the American Fisheries Society when I was the president that year. I wanted to bring them here because it was people from all over the world, experts, and we could have all learned from that. So,
would you like to take a call? We do have someone.
Oh, okay.
Hello, you're on the air. Hello, are you still with us? I think they got tired of waiting.
Anyone else?
No, but let me, before you jump back in, we did have someone on the Facebook page that wanted to know if you're related to Steele Wines.
No, I'm not. I went over there to ask them if I could get the family discount, and they said it didn't work.
No, you didn't check a DNA.
No.
Just a pleasant coincidence.
His Steele name, if it's the same Steele name, goes back to Scotland, and so I at least.
Is that the Scotland?
Yeah, I tried to check with them there. And he says, "Well, we think we're not sure." So there you are. Right?
Here's a real easy question for you.
Yeah.
And this is really easy. Yeah. As a county supervisor, if you are duly elected by the great people of your district, do you consider a county supervisor a full-time position or a part-time position?
No, that's a full-time position. I don't see how anybody could do it part-time.
And when you say full-time, give me an idea of what you have planned on a weekly, monthly basis for you to do as your job.
Well, I actually started talking about some of that. There's a lot of programs that you'd want to put together to bring forward to the rest of the supervisors. You'd also want to work with staff to see if those programs have the depth and the ability to go forward. So you're working with citizens. You're working with the other clientele that you have in the other agencies, and at the state level as well. I know we have in our district a problem with some water rates in Lucerne, and that's a state level issue because the rules aren't quite right, and that has to be brought up there. So if you can't find something to do 40 hours a week and a lot longer than that, and that was basically the way that I worked when I worked for the state. It was never a 40-hour week. If you can't find something to do, bringing these things forward, studying the issues, teasing them apart so you understand them, and then checking your pulse with everybody to make sure you're on track, then you're just not doing your job. So it's going to have to be. So
you are going to work 40-hour
a
week?
Yeah. No, it's a full-time.
Have meetings with your constituents and whatever how you pronounce that, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm doing that now, and actually I'm already working in volunteer groups. This is the volunteer capital of the state.
Oh, God, tell me about it.
It's amazing.
And fundraiser after
we have
fundraiser.
so many wonderful people here. Yeah. It's just incredible.
You have so many resources here. You don't want government doing a lot of things that you can have these people do because it's so neat. So.
Okay. We want to talk about two different measures that are coming up on the ballot.
Okay.
Terry's going to take one for obvious reasons, and I'm going to take the other one.
Okay.
The first one is Measure L, as in lake.
Yeah, it's a lake.
Okay. Simple yes or no answer, and then I'll ask more detailed questions.
Do I support it?
Are you for it, yes or no?
I am.
I'm sorry.
No, here's the reason why. You have to ask why.
Okay, you can answer why, and then I'm going to go. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, because you're going to just tell me why I shouldn't.
No, I'm not going to say that.
Okay, here's the reason. I was not for the first one, and I got problems with the second one. I got a lot of problems with the second one. But here's the problem we have. We're not going to be able to move forward without some dollars coming to some programs. And this is not the best looking animal I've ever seen, but we're not moving forward. And if we get some dollars moving in there, I'm assuming that I will be elected by supporting it. I'm assuming I will be elected.
I'm going to leave that line alone, by the way.
Supervisor, so that I can, in fact, shepherd this thing and get it off the slate as fast as possible because it doesn't need to be there. And once we get those programs in place that need to be there, because it takes startup money to get a lot of this stuff going, then it needs to be the county responsibility to keep it going. I wrote an article once that basically laid all of this out. It was more of the county should be doing this, and they should be prioritizing everything in a different way, so that taking care of the lake and taking care of the economy by virtue of the watershed is part of the basic budget fabric, and it isn't. And that was my tenet that I put on the table. You can't move it forward unless you take the only vehicle on the table and get it started. And so that's why I said, yes, I will.
And fair enough. I respect your opinion. Don't agree, but I respect it.
Yeah, and it's fair enough. It's going to be a tough one for everybody.
But you said you also don't agree that it's not the best pie ever made.
No,
okay, so let me get in a couple of specific questions then. And I've looked at this and reread it, and I will say that Scott DeLeon and oh God, brain fart. Our attorney.
Oh.
Anita. I'm sorry, Anita. I apologize. I just lost my track, Anita. They would both been very cooperative and very good in their communications and providing information, updated information to me upon request, and that never happened in the past. So I give them kudos for that. So, anyway, a couple of items. Number one, without going into a big, lengthy explanation, do you agree with how the money is being allocated and the programs that they want to implement?
No, I don't. And I'm really sorry to see that they have those programs in the ordinance itself, but there's enough wording there that you can take those programs and make them useful. And so in the conversations with them, I felt comfortable that, in fact, that could happen and make it a process that was very transparent to the public, because there's some good ideas in the public that have come forward to that board that were never taken up.
Okay, so you're telling me that based on the language within the measure right now, that you feel there's enough flexibility in the terminology to allow you to change some of the inner workings of the programs to make it more...
move it so that it can be useful.
Have you talked to Anita about that to see if she agrees with that or not?
No, not specifically to Anita. Does she think that it's
well? She's the attorney here, so she helped write the measure. So
well, I don't know. It's in the reading, and notwithstanding, I really respect her as being the county attorney and all that, but she doesn't make the decisions for the board, and she isn't going to tell them from the reading of that it is actually counter to it, unless it's very specific to the words. And I've read the words myself, and I thought, look, I can work with this.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So, my next question is, and this is an honest question because I do not know the answer, and I should have asked before the show started, but I didn't have time. The amount of money that's allocated per project in the measure, is that a annual or over the 10-year basis of the measure?
No, it was an annual.
It is. So right now we have $2.4 million budgeted each year, which is equal to the amount of alleged tax revenue that's going to be generated by this measure.
Yeah, and then it'll be proportionally less depending on how.
Even though that Scott DeLeon was here face-to-face with us, stipulated that after year 2, half the funds allocated to the gates and all the other good junk that's discussed there is going to be cut in half, so therefore you're now going to have a surplus of sales tax.
Correct.
Now, I proposed to him, and Phil Murphy also suggested this before I did, that why can't the measure show the tax being cut in half after 2 years just to fund the necessary projects? And let me add one more comment to that, is that in the language of the measure, there is absolutely nothing stated in writing that says what happens to the excess funds, except that they go into reserve. Well, if they're not spent at the end of the 10 years at the sunset, what happens to those funds?
Well, actually, I think you jumped ahead so far that the middle was left out.
Go ahead.
From the way I look at it, and everybody can argue with me, that's fine, because then they can either vote or not vote, and the argument, I think, is good for everyone to have their own understanding. But from my standpoint, to fix this place, you're going to need that amount of money every year working on projects in the upper watershed in conjunction with other grants, in conjunction with water storage facilities. In other words, trying to get groundwater facilities working to try to recharge, groundwater recharge, to try to get the wetlands back up to speed, to try to get the reconstruction of the shoreline such that it'll actually work, so that the hitch will come back, so that the vegetation will come back. A lot of this stuff doesn't come back very fast simply because of the way that the shoreline is working right now. And that would take a long time to explain. But I think that you've got barely enough money to get all of that done moving forward so that you'll have everything the way that you really need it.
Okay, so you're confident in your beliefs that the amount of the tax revenues coming in will be used 100% to help benefit and improve the lake.
that would be my intention.
Right.
But I've got 4 other votes that may vote
Well,
me down.
here's the problem. And again, I first want to tell anyone to ask me, I'm extremely bitter and very apprehensive about anything in government, and I have my reasons for it. Doesn't mean everyone else agrees with me.
And please assume that I do too.
Okay. So do you feel there's enough trust, enough faith, enough confidence in the voting public of this county with the Board of Supervisors to be able to manage these funds and use them correctly after past experiences?
You want a one-word answer?
Yes.
The answer is no.
Thank you.
And there is not.
So-
and just based on my conversations with everybody and based on my approach to the first time this came up, that's why we said, we're going to have to try to change the conversation and change the alchemy here.
Well, this goes back to transparency and informing the public and providing the necessary information to make an educated
Absolutely.
decision. And I don't
Absolutely.
see that happening.
Not from their end.
No.
I'm certainly trying to.
I'm not saying you're not, Jim. I'm not at all.
And when you get there, you've got to have that conversation with them.
This is just like, and I hate to use the comparison, this is like this council in Clear Lake saying, well, we got defeated twice before, so instead of doing a road and code enforcement tax, we're just going to make it a general tax and put it right back in the ballot in 2 months. Really, folks?
Nobody's
there's no
gonna
trust
vote
and
for that.
faith in that. I mean,
No, of
there
course
has
not.
to build confidence in the citizens of this county
Okay.
to want to vote for something.
Let me tell you how it was, and it's going to be short. Okay.
Yeah,
you got
finish
one?
your thought,
Okay.
and then we'll go to a phone line.
Here's how I proposed to them that it should be done, and this is the way I've seen it done, and this is the way when I was a branch chief that we actually did it. We developed all the projects ahead of time. Then we went, in that case, it was you go to the legislature and you say, look, we need money for this, and then they find the money, and of course the taxpayer pays for it.
Right.
But this way you still do it, and you come out and say, look, taxpayers pay for it. You go to all the projects ahead of time. And the board said, well, you'd have 150 pages. No, actually, you'd probably have 1,500 pages. And that's what you'd have, and they would see how this thing was going to get you where you want to go, and they didn't want to do that. And that's because they've never done it that way,
And
but that's
you
really how to do it.
understand how to create these gigantic paper, whatever it be,
Project
purpose.
by project,
projects,
purposeful
exactly, on
government,
paper,
yes.
in detail. That's an asset.
That's exactly what you need to do to make this thing work.
Right.
Cool. Hello, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jim, I don't want this to come as a kind of a gotcha, so it would be...
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Gee,
I got your name.
he knows where you live, too.
Well, that's okay. I know where you live as well.
we look at each other across the lake. Go ahead, Mike. What'd you get me on?
Well, here's my question. Having to do with the Watershed Protection District Board,
Yes.
which,
got it.
for those that are not particularly informed, that's the Board of Supervisors when they twist their hat.
They changed the hat.
Agree.
That's right.
Would you support, and I'm not going to ask you for an absolute answer, would you support the concept of potentially asking the legislature to change SB 1136 so that we could consider having a separate Watershed Protection District Board as opposed to the Board of Supervisors?
Absolutely. And the reason is that you'd want to have people of expertise and focus on it. And the county board is not focused on this. They're focused on a lot of other things, as they should probably be. We don't have that system right now, but you've got them going in 17 directions at once, and so what they do is get a briefing on the direction that you want them to go, and then they have to make a decision, and they're uncomfortable doing that. So people have to have their head in it 100%, and I agree with you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I love people like Mike. They actually know what they're talking about, unlike me.
Well, I'm on committees with Mike, and he does, and so do other people. I've heard him in front of the board, and maybe they don't have everything, but they certainly have enough when they get up there that
Right.
This guy knows what he's talking about. Listen to him.
I know. Okay, one last question on Measure L, then I want Terry to get into the MJ quickly, and then I got 3 or 4 real straightforward questions before we run out of time for you.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so the biggest problem I really have, besides I'm a no-tax type person. My background, I believe there's different ways of raising revenues than just having to tax the crap out of people.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's my opinion.
I'm a no-tax background, too, by the way.
Right. I kind of got that,
Yeah.
but so my biggest problem is this, quote, oversight committee. How can you have an oversight committee that's selected by the individual board itself and have to be answered to the board? And I have to admit, Scott and Anita did change the wording of that after I and Phil voice our opinions about it.
Yeah.
2 reps from Lake County, from Clear Lake, Lakeport, and the county. And then there's 11 positions overall, and they're saying they should come from these specialized groups, the Sierra Club, the Forestry Department, yada, 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 BS, BS, BS. I totally disagree with that. I think they should be asking for people to volunteer for this committee that have a diverse background in all facets of this measure, from both a expert in technology on the lake itself to someone with maybe accounting or economic business background to understand the flow of cash and everything else. I don't like this. Board selects me, therefore I have to kneel down and bow to the board to keep that seat, and if they don't like my opinion, they dissolve it anyway.
Yeah, well, the devil's in the details, and it's obviously coming from a position of mistrust, and I respect that. And how that committee is selected, you're going to wind up with good people or not, no matter how you make your choices. And the volunteers that are good don't necessarily volunteer. Sometimes it's by pressure. I know that when I've had this oversight issue, in fact, I was managing a $15 million budget for coastal stream restoration projects, and there was a lot of a problem with people keep getting the same projects. Well, the reason they were getting the same project because they had the equipment and the ability to actually get the job done, and so they kept getting selected and they kept making good bids. And so we had to keep finding oversight that was completely unconnected with them to make sure we were doing it exactly right, and there was no quid pro quo involved at all, and that they were the right people doing the right job. So it is the job of the supervisors. This is their job. You don't trust them, but it is their job. And if you don't like them, get somebody new in there.
We're trying.
Yeah, and get somebody in there that you can trust to make those selections, to get people that absolutely have no connections.
Okay, so you think the Oversight Committee in Measure L will be successful?
I think that it can work if you get the right people, but that's always...
See, I have no problem with the people who want to volunteer and be part of the committee. My concern is, and I'm not speaking on any individual per se, but the board as a whole, I've already seen them in action with other oversight committees, and it's not very conducive to a positive feeling.
A positive feeling.
So,
I don't disagree with that, because that's your feelings, and I really can't take that anywhere. But I think that what they should be doing in this county is getting the folks up there that they can trust, that they do have a positive feeling about, and there should be the kind of feeling with the committee that everybody says, yes, this person really is the right person.
Okay, let's move on. Yours, dear.
Okay, so the obvious question I know a lot of people want to know is what's your stand on medical marijuana, and do you support the ordinance that'll be going on the June ballot?
All right. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Those are both those questions really are diverse because they're spawned by different events. But the medical marijuana, when I first started looking at that and when it was the state vote, I says, what's this all about? There's no evidence here. This country is not even really looking at this honestly. And so I got into the science and I started, teasing it up, and I found out that the work that was done in Canada and other places actually had some good gravity, a little gravity there.
Israel's had huge
results. They've got some really good results.
Yeah.
And so now I'm looking at it quite differently, and I'm looking at, the different cannabinoids, the groupings, and, so that...
THC versus CDB and all that good
all
stuff.
That sort of thing, and then saying that, look, this can go somewhere. But we're going to have some more, in my view, just like the rest of the world has done, we're going to have some formal studies here so we can actually have some confidence in it. But at the same time, when you have grassroots that are actually taking that information and getting real results and putting it on the table, you have to have a merging of the formal science and that work. And that has also been done in science. So
yes, and there's so much anecdotal data that we've been able to gather on results for people.
And you got to be able to tease that up so that you can repeatability and all the rest of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that's where I am in medical marijuana. I think, boy, this is a fertile field, and anything that cures or helps people with cancer, how can you knock that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I have some friends who, by the way, have cancer and used it and said, wow. So
yeah, it makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference. So now, as to the whole business about the vote, look, I don't think that we got where we wanted to get through all of the problem with the process here in this county, and I go back to the state legislature punting it to the counties in the first place.
Yeah, unfair.
It was unfair, and we're not equipped for it, and we're trying to handle it. And I watched those poor folks up at the front. And I would have done it differently.
They're not poor folks up front. Give me a break,
come on,
will
we're
ya?
short on time. Let's keep on track.
I got him on
We
the
got
poor
2
folks.
calls holding, so let's keep on track.
Poor meaning that they were beaten up, and they didn't know how to get out from underneath it.
They caused their own
Do
problem.
you think this ordinance was a reaction as opposed to an actual, consideration of people's needs?
Yes, I think it was a reaction, and I think they had another solution there, and I don't think they went down that track, and I was not happy with it.
Oh, good.
Okay, so are you for or against this current measure?
I don't think the measure's the wrong measure, but
Right.
that's really, I
Right.
guess I have to
So,
say.
there is a new initiative in the works that should go on the November ballot. So what we're recommending people to do is vote this measure as a no, and then the people that are putting this new initiative, they want to come together with all the stakeholders, including the county officials.
There you go.
And
No,
create
yeah.
something that everybody's going to be happy
Yes.
with.
Now you're talking.
So that's why we're advocating to vote no in June, with the understanding that in November there'll be something that everyone will like.
Okay. Yeah, if
You
if
okay
you
with
put
that?
something like that and you got a process in place and you're looking at the devil and all the details, I like that.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
like where we are.
No, and
I
we
don't
have
think
to go
anybody does.
further, but we have to go further with consideration of those people who are true patients.
Yes.
And they're
yes.
being left out on this particular.
That was what
ordinance.
I saw that
Yeah.
I was concerned about it.
Good.
Okay. Good.
Okay, great. So I'm going to move to the phones real quickly because we're almost done.
All right.
Hello, you're on the air.
Hey.
Hi.
No.
Oh, you're breaking up.
It's hard to do.
Yeah,
Okay. I just maybe you get this, maybe you won't.
I
But
can hear you now. Hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you, do you think there's any feasibility to the harvesting of the algae in the lake? And that's my question.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, you
Thank
have to define algae. People are pretty loose with that. I think a lot of people are looking at the weeds that are growing up from the bottom and calling it algae, which in fact it can be. But that can be harvested and it can be used. I'm doing some research right now to see whether or not we're going to be, using it.
In Arizona, we have had a lot of good results with algae as fuel. Now, I don't know if this algae has that capability, but to me, I mean, you can't eat the stuff because of the mercury contamination.
If you're looking at cyanobacteria, that was
yeah.
actually already looked at, and actually it is being harvested up at Lake Klamath in Oregon, and they're putting that on, as medical supplement.
Right, because it doesn't have the mercury in it.
But it doesn't have the mercury, and it
That's
doesn't
the
have the
problem. We
contamination.
can't use it for food or medicine, but what about for fuel?
Well, the cyanobacteria, there isn't really as much as you think from the standpoint of after you dry it, you stack it, you're not going to get as much as you think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually, and it only comes at certain times, and you don't want to be producing it. You really want to get rid of it. So I
Right,
say
okay, so it's
turn
not a
around,
practical thing.
face in the other direction. Yeah, but
fair
it's
enough.
not practical.
Okay, next caller. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, it's me, Robert. I'm calling about marijuana and about how, because it's a petropharmaceutical arms corporate fascist state, this country acts like it's only good for cancer, and it's good for so many things,
Oh,
and
yeah.
even especially the economy. And there's like three sections to it: the people that have under half an acre, or people that have more, and the people that have a whole lot.
Right.
And the people in the middle could benefit the middle class, but the authorities and the government actors continually just look at the people with under a half acre or those that are growing mass quantities and just starve to death the middle class and ignore the plight that this
Well, Robert,
that the economy is in.
I think you're going to find that the new initiative is going to address the people in the middle as well as the people with the smaller parcels, and also the commercialization and industrialization of hemp as well. I think that's
Yeah,
all in
instead
their
of-
goal.
Yeah, if
Right,
you're-
and then the board now, one has 20 or 50 acres, and they make it, that's how much you got to have. That's coercion. And the other one is a bondsman that they hardly have a right to say anything. And then they're using the officery with the community growth department. It's like attacking the citizenry with all the different professional sectors and government actors.
Yeah, Robert, it's Jim. Your perception, just like a lot of people's perception, is one that's been sent to you rather than having good solutions on the table, so you feel
Yeah.
that you understand and that you can go in this direction. And this is a holding pattern. I see this as a holding pattern because what it really has happened is it's caused people to get together and try to bring something
Absolutely.
back that will work.
It's
So.
brought a lot of people together.
Yeah.
Robert, we
Yeah,
got to
don't
go.
worry.
We're out of
Okay,
time, but
peace,
thank
bye.
you for your thoughts. Okay, so unfortunately we are out of time. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
This has been fun, and it's fun watching his face, by the way.
He's a
When I
character,
called the
isn't he?
supervisor poor, he just about had a catatonic fit. Are you okay? Are you going to survive?
No sympathy.
There's no sympathy for these people because they create their own mess.
I can tell you don't have any.
So,
All right.
can I ask you a few questions off the air?
You bet.
And then I'm going to provide those questions and answers at the beginning of next show.
Well, you could put it on the camera and have it on the show.
I can do that too.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Fair enough.
Okay, and also for everybody, next week our guest will be John Brosnan, who happens to also be here in the studio. Hi, John. And he'll be talking about his race for the same seat. And how we're going to do it, we're going to stagger, because there's so many of you guys for that one seat. We're going to stagger two, then we're going to have the two sheriff's candidates. They're going to have two candidates from City of Clear Lake. Then we're going to have two more candidates from District 3. Then we're going to have the other candidate from Clear Lake, the other candidate for sheriff, and then the other candidates for District 3.
Sounds great. We have an embarrassment
So-
of riches.
Right, and
Yeah.
I'll give you one plug
It's a
now.
blessing.
Go ahead and announce your
your
meet and greet.
Oh, we have a meet and greet on May 8th, is Saturday, and it's coming.
May 8th?
I'm sorry, May 8th. But
March
thank you for the
8th.
catch, March 8th. March 8th, and oh yeah, my wife would have been mad. Okay, I'll put it this way: this Saturday, 3 to 5, Lucerne Senior Center.
All right.
I was thinking ahead to May, right?
Well, that's pretty good planning. you know.
Yeah. So everybody come down. We're going to provide some refreshments, and I'll give a slideshow on how the lake works and what my priorities are,
Cool.
and we'll
Excellent.
take questions.
We love the last one that you did. Also, we will be posting this on our website, so if anybody would like to go back over it with the additional questions that we'll be asking after
right,
this
that's
show.
right. Okay,
Thank you
thanks,
very
guys.
much.
Thank you, Jim.
And I hope everybody has a great week. This is Terry Larson.
And Pete the Tax Guy.
And this is Lake County Magazine, folks, and we'll see you back next week, same time, same place. Have a great one. Peace.
And same station.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Did you want to do that in here or out there?
KPFZ 88.1 FM thanks Kathy Fowler, Chevrolet Chrysler.